Every bad situation is a blues song waiting to happen. Welcome to the Throttle and Roast podcast. I'm your host, Niels Meersschaert. We're in the middle of winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. The cold temperatures outside may mean we aren't riding as often or even at all as we would in the warmer weather. Colder temperatures and shorter days have their own impact on our well-being. We'll look at what are the motorcycle blues, looking at some issues like SAD and anhedonia. We'll also share some ways to keep the motorcycle blues in check throughout the winter months. So what are the motorcycle blues? Well, there's basically two types of riders. There are those who park their bikes when the weather turns cold, and those who soldier on. And for those who park their bikes, missing out on riding can start to have a negative impact on their mental health. They miss riding, which was a release for much of the stress that they have in life. And especially if riding is a large part of your leisure activities, what can you do in the off-season? Now, for those who continue to ride, there are different challenges with riding in the winter cold than in the summer heat. These can make it harder to stay motivated to get out on the bike, but also have practical considerations of how to stay warm and safe with what Mother Nature is throwing at you. So let's start with SAD. Now, SAD is actually a wonderful acronym for if you will, a disorder that we use to reference usually in seasons. And it actually stands for seasonally affective disorder. Now, this is a depression that's most commonly associated with the fall and winter months. And some of the symptoms include feeling listless, sad, or down most of the day, in fact, nearly every day, losing interest in activities that you once enjoyed, having low energy, feeling sluggish, having problems with sleeping too much, experiencing carbohydrate cravings, overeating, weight gain, having difficulty concentrating, feeling hopeless, worthless, or guilty, and even possibly having thoughts of not wanting to live. Now, SAD, of course, doesn't just apply to those of us as motorcyclists, but if you're missing out on an activity that you really did enjoy, it can have a greater impact. Now, another sort of variation of some of the motorcycle blues that some people may experience is something called anhedonia. And this is a lack of interest, enjoyment, or pleasure from life's experiences. And some of the symptoms might include numbness, boredom, apathy, negativity. Now, apathy and anhedonia aren't exactly the same. Now, while apathy is a part of anhedonia, the main difference is that anhedonia is the lack of enjoyment or pleasure. And apathy is really more of a lack of energy or motivation to do things. So what can you do to beat the blues? Now, the thing that I want to start with is a little bit of a disclaimer. If your symptoms are so severe or you're feeling hopeless, definitely consult a doctor. But if it's more of just the seasonally affective type where you're just feeling a bit down, then maybe some of these tips will help keep you a little bit motivated when it comes to the motorcycle blues. So one of the first things that you can do is keep involved in motorcycling content. So listening to podcasts like this one are a great way to keep thinking about and keeping foremost in your mind that activity that you just absolutely love. And by keeping it front of mind, it's still there, even if you're not actively riding, but you're thinking about it. And that can keep a little bit of the endorphins that we would normally get when we're riding kind of coming in a, albeit reduced manner, but at least keeping it still in your spirit. Another way that you can do is reading some motorcycle news. Learn about some of the new bikes that are coming onto the market. Learn about any of the new rides that are coming. Backcountry Discovery Routes, for example, has been publishing all sorts of new rides in the US. And this is something to keep you motivated if there are things that you can look forward to. Another one is look at some of the bike reviews that are out. These new bikes have come out and some journalists are actually getting a chance to try them out, give some reaction to them. And this can also get you a little bit excited for maybe this is a bike you'll consider in the new year. Another piece of content that you can look at is some of the YouTube shows that are out there. These are great ways to visually see some of the motorcycling that you really enjoy, and especially if the people who are producing them are in warmer climates where they don't have some of the motorcycling blues, they may be able to continue to produce content throughout the year, and this way you can live a little bit vicariously through them. Another one that you could do is even look at some of the Long Way documentary series, and these can provide a good fix for when you're not riding. Also look at books, things like The Perfect Vehicle or Jupiter's Travels or some classic motorcycling books about the journey that these people have taken, and they can be a little bit of a aspiration for you and reflecting on what you might want to achieve yourself in your own motorcycling journey. Another good thing that you can do is visit a dealership. Sometimes just seeing a bunch of bikes that you don't own can rejuvenate your interest. And it could even work out financially, as winter is often the slow season for dealers, and many of them are willing to shave costs. Of the 10 motorcycles that I've owned over the last 30 years of riding, I bought 3 of them in the winter because I was able to get some really great deals on them. And if nothing else, talk to the people in the shop, as they're likely not busy and they're going to be welcome to the attention. But it also keeps your mind on riding and bikes in general. You can start planning out some of the motorcycle trips for the warmer months, and sometimes just thinking about when you will be on the bike can help cure some of the blues. Take advantage of the downtime and research where you might go, routes to get there, places to stay. There's a lot of things to keep your mind occupied on motorcycling, even if you aren't out on the bike. And complete some of those projects that you've held off on, whether it's neglected maintenance or a few Farkle upgrades. The winter downtime is perfect for working on your bike. It keeps your mind focused on the bike and gets the bike ready for riding when the weather does improve. And remember, we talked about that one of the downsides of SAD is that it can actually result in a bit of weight gain. So one way to counter this is with exercise. Now, physical activities can increase the production of dopamine, which can alleviate some of the winter blues feelings. And as we discussed in the Motorcycle Resolutions for 2026 episode, improving your fitness for the next riding season can also be its own benefit. And now look, winter is cold and maybe you are a warm weather rider, but there's going to every once in a while be a unseasonably warm winter day. Take advantage of that. Even if you're not interested in riding when it's really, really cold out, there are these days where it gets a bit warmer and you can take that bike out of the garage and go for a nice ride. And this can be an amazing respite from that long time that you're waiting for the bike to be able to come out of hibernation, where you take advantage of that nice warm day that comes every once in a while. And finally, the last one that I'd say for beating the motorcycle blues is actually just become a winter rider. Get heated gear, layer up, become an expert on weather forecasts, and keep on riding. Now, while there are plenty of naysayers who claim that it is crazy to ride in the winter, it can be done even safely. Now, check out our recent episode, Tips for Storage and Riding in Cold Weather, for some more detailed tips on how you can extend your riding season. Now, I've personally ridden as low as 3 degrees Fahrenheit, and riding in 20 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty normal for where I live in the Northeast US. I just did a coffee ride on my F900 GS a few weeks ago, and it was 33 degrees Fahrenheit when I started, and the warmest it got up to was 37 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no snow or ice on the ground. It was just cold. So heated gear, some hippo hand guards over the grips, and a larger windshield essentially made the temperature irrelevant. So while having that gear can increase the number of days that you can ride in the winter, it doesn't solve snow or ice on the roads. So you'll still have some days where you can't ride. But even if it's only a few times a month that you're able to get out on the bike, that's better than waiting 3 to 5 months for your next ride. And for those days when the weather is just really impossible to go out and ride, look at some of these other things. Take on some of those other tips that I shared of how you can keep the motorcycle blues at bay. So we looked at what the motorcycle blues are, along with some of the medical symptoms that we might face. We also covered some ways to mitigate some of the sad feelings you might be feeling being away from your bike. Now, while these can definitely help, it's critical to seek professional medical care if your symptoms are severe. So my question for you this week is, what are you doing to combat the motorcycle blues? Share your thoughts through the text to show link in the show notes, or leave a voicemail at throttleandroast.com/voicemail. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, please tell a friend about the show. You can often share an episode directly from your podcast app, or you can direct them to throttleandroast.com. Word of mouth is the best way for us to grow and find new listeners, so I really appreciate your help.